Ahoy there, friends!
Ciao!
In this episode, we sail west along the coast of Corsica, anchor at our own private beach, and then explore the historic town of Calvi.
We also ride out some very rough weather at anchor.
We anchored off a very beautiful and popular beach so that we could have some lunch. It was quite exposed there though, and we didn't fancy spending the night. So we continued along the coast and found ourselves a beautiful, secluded little bay.
We rowed ashore and had the whole beach to ourselves. And we also did some exploring on foot.
We headed back to the boat to relax and then watch this beautiful sunset off the bow.
By the way, since this video was taken with both new camera and we can't wait to film scenes like this in higher quality.
We had a really nice comfortable night at anchor thanks to the second anchor that we'd set off the stern the day before. Our bow was pointing into the waves all night, and in the morning it was evident that our neighbours who hadn't set a second anchor had been beam onto the waves.
The day started off sunny and we got ourselves ready to sail away from our little bay.
Later that day, the weather took a turn for the worse, so we found ourselves a small anchorage in which to take shelter. At the surface, this wasn't the prettiest anchorage that we'd been to. However, underwater with all the rocks in this area, it was a really interesting place to snorkel and it was full of marine life. We now have an action camera, and in future videos we'll be able to show you what we see underwater.
Eccoci a Calvi.
4.5 knots, anche se sembra che non stiamo muovendo.
Esatto. La vela al gaiola.
We would have loved to anchor just outside the port near the town centre. However, this whole area was full of mooring balls. So we had to anchor here, which was 45 minutes walk from the centre of Calvi.
More importantly, we were in the centre of the bay and were therefore completely exposed to more than 100 miles of open water to the north. As a result, we were keeping a very close eye on the weather forecasts.
We set our stern anchor again so that we could keep the bow pointing into the waves. We then made ourselves comfortable, as this was going to be our home for the next 5 days.
After a nice simple dinner, we went through our usual ritual of watching the sunset. Every single one is different, and this one did not disappoint.
A new day started and we couldn't wait to go ashore. Unusually for us, we were awake early enough to watch the sunrise.
After having some breakfast, we got the tender ready and then rowed ashore so that we could explore the town. After spending time at sea and in some isolated anchorages, Calvi seemed like a really big town. In reality, the population is only 5,500.
We had a really good time in Calvi, and we also enjoyed the long walk back along the beach.
We were relieved to see our tender still waiting for us, as if it had gone missing it would have been a very long swim back to the boat.
Guarda a sinistra.
Heave! Heave!
Sembri anche un veneziano o un gondoliere. La cosa a righe.
After breakfast, it was such a calm day that we thought it would have been a good idea to sail into town in our tender.
I should point out at this point that when I built the tender, I did follow the plans, apart from the sailing rig. It was suggested that you buy an Optimist rig and rudder and daggerboard, however, they were a bit too expensive for my taste, so I just knocked some up out of some random things I had in the garage. It was just over a mile into town and the sail started off perfectly. We had calm winds coming from a good direction and we were making nice progress without Rossella panicking. We nearly made it into the harbour and then all of a sudden a northerly wind came from nowhere and broke my experimental rudder mounts. We then went out of control and eventually ended up spending 3 hours battling to get back to the boat.
We could have just given up and rowed back, but Chris hates admitting defeat.
Once we got back on board, I took the rig off and we rowed ashore so that we could walk into town. While we were there, we also checked the all-important weather forecast.
The maximum wave height on the forecast was 1.5 meters. A bit uncomfortable, but nothing crazy.
We then walked along the beach again. We were getting plenty of exercise on this trip.
A new day, a new breakfast.
And we decided to spend the entire day relaxing on the boat. Red sky at night, sailor's delight.
Rosso di sera, bel tempo si spera.
Well, this proverb's not always true. Whenever you get video of bad weather, it never looks as bad as it is in real life. On this occasion we had waves of 3 to 4 metres, which were twice as large as the forecasted waves. Rossella felt very seasick and I felt really guilty because I couldn't get her ashore under those conditions. We had no option but to ride out the bad weather.
Wherever I went on the boat, I was getting thrown around by the waves.
The only way to prevent this was to tie Rossella into the cockpit inside a hammock.
Basically, I was a sausage on the boat.